environmental engineering, engineering education. His research expertise include technology-enabled teaching learning, assessment and evaluation, development of MOOCs, accreditation, academic quality framework and academic auditing, learning spaces, blended approach, active and experiential learning, sustainable development and education, environmental remediation, solid and hazardous waste management, and landfill engineering, and also life cycle assessment and sustainable construction material. His research and training program is funded by the ITEC DST World Bank, MHRD, EWD, and several prominent state government and universities. His research includes laboratory studies, field experiments, and computer modeling, ultimately leading to fundamental advances and practical solutions to real-world problems. Dr. Janardhanan has published around 45 research articles in the international and national journals and conferences. He has been granted patent by Government of India towards manufacturing artificial aggregation from waste. Dr. Chinana has coordinated more than 20 international training programs and trained around 400 international delegates from 68 different countries across the globe. To name few, Afghanistan, Algeria, Angola, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Belarus, Botswana, Colombia, and etc. He has, he has coordinated more than 200 training programs and trained more than 15,000 participants. He has developed and offered 6 MOOCs with registration more than 30,000. He is serving as a reviewer of various journal and international conferences. Dr. Chinarna has received fellowship and awards, UNESCO invitation to Asia Pacific Regional Seminar on MOOC for Higher Education, Institution of Engineers India, Young Engineers Award, American Society of Civil Engineer ASC, Alliance Section, Geotechnical Award, Swiss Federal Institute of Technology EPFL Fellowship, University of Alliance Doctoral Fellowship. So he is a member in American Society of Engineering Education, American Society of Civil Engineers, International Water Association IWA, Indian Society of Technical Education, Indian Geotechnical Society, National Solid Waste Association of India, Institution of Engineers India. His doctoral research is from University of Alliance, USA, and bachelor's and master's degree from College of Engineering, India, Anna University, India. He extensively traveled within and abroad for technical lectures. For example, USA, Germany, Belarus, China, Hong Kong, Thailand, Malaysia. A lot of things are there to say, but just I will stop here and I will hand over the dais. And just reciting his short biography, I can see how what vast expertise sir has. So it will be very honored to have you, sir, for the session 1. So now, over to you, sir.
Good morning, and it's my pleasure to kickstart the AICTE sponsored training program at M University of Technology, Gorakhpur, on examination reforms. Why we need to focus on examination reforms? Is it going to play an important role? What way it is going to play an important role? Basically, if you observe, if the students are performing well, how they are performing? They are performing based on the assessment pattern what we wish. If the assessment pattern, if it's going to be multiple choice question, the students will learn accordingly. If the assessment pattern is going to be a written test, they are going to learn accordingly. So one way or other way, the assessment is going to redefine or define the learning pattern. That we have to accept it. Assessment is going to define the learning pattern. The learning pattern is also influenced by our teaching pattern. Some other way we might teach, because since if now I am offering a new course on research methodology and IPR through MOOC in the month of June onwards, it is going to be floating through MOOC. So for that, when I'm preparing a MOOC, I have my own passion of making a MOOCs. So what we did, we took some movie, Flash of Genius. There was a movie in Hollywood which really talks about how this movie is getting connected to the research methodology in IPR. So each chapter, one story, case study, accordingly the structure. So the teaching pattern defines the learning pattern, but the learning pattern depends upon the assessment pattern. So the learning is influenced by the two major corner. One is assessment, one is teaching. So assessment is the top pivotal point which is going to redefine the maximum of the learning. Even if my teaching pattern is different, but if the assessment pattern is different, the students will try to focus only on the assessment pattern. If I might teach out of box classroom thinking, several things I can teach. But if it is not going to be in the assessment, only a few percentage of the students are going to learn from the learning sake. Rest of them, they will always wish to adopt what it has been asked in the examination. So in such situation, how to go about it? There always exists a nexus between the teaching, learning and assessment. Is doing things better or doing better things? What matters? What do you mean by doing things better or doing better things? It basically focuses on it is focused on the difference between the effectiveness and efficiency. How effective you are, how efficient you are. That is going to be the major focus. Efficiency and effectiveness, it is going to focus. So the efficiency and effectiveness is focused, and it's going to make effectiveness and efficiency. It is going to focus on the matters. Efficiency and effectiveness is going to focus on it matters. So so that it depends upon how effective and how efficient you are. How effective and how efficient you are, it is going to play an important role. How effective and efficient you are, it is going to play an important role. How effective and efficient you are, it's going to play an important role. Okay. So in this lecture, the content expressed are purely my technical perspective. It does not represent the organization to which I am affiliated. So when we talk in terms of assessment, we have to see what sort of system, teaching system we have. At present, we have outcome-based education. What do you mean by outcome-based education? Outcome-based education, if you understand the story of outcome-based education, then you will not forget outcome-based education, because the assessment pattern we all depends upon when we set the question paper. I've seen my colleague Dr. Dinesh Kumar is going to teach how to frame the question paper. In question paper framing, we see two dimensions. One is knowledge dimension, then is a cognitive dimension. In knowledge dimension, there are four different types of knowledge: factual knowledge, conceptual knowledge, procedural knowledge, and metacognitive knowledge. The conceptual knowledge, you will remember. The procedural knowledge, it will be evergreen, and only if you remember the concepts. If the procedural knowledge, if you are forgetting, then obviously you didn't understand the concepts. So to emphasize that, you have to remember how we have to focus, and what we have to focus. If you observe the outcome-based education, the fundamental definition, the learning is fixed. The learning is fixed, but the learning time varies. This is like drawing a line between this. There are different types of learners exist. There exists a diversity in the teaching learning process. Because generally learning is not the product of teaching. Learning is a product of the activity of the learners. Learning is a product of the activity of the learner. Always there exists a difference. Diversity exists. Suppose if this pencil wants to reach this level line, it has to travel more time. But whereas this pencil has to travel only less time. But this pencil will take still more time when compared to the brown color pencil. But this pencil already surpassed the line. So the outcome-based education, the fundamental definition is the learning is fixed. The learning time varies. Learning is fixed, learning time varies. How I need to accommodate the learning time? How I need to take care of the learning time? Because if you all observe, it all started with the launch of a satellite by Russia known as a Sputnik. Sputnik, when they launched, then US people, they got thinking what way they have to redefine their education system. Under the leadership of Professor Spaddy, they framed a committee to focus on the creation of an outcome-based education. So if you want to focus on outcome-based education, the fundamental definition we have to remember, the learning is fixed, the learning time varies. If the learning is fixed, if the learning time varies, how to bring everyone to the same level with the minimum time, it all depends upon the teaching. But if you want to bring everyone to the minimum level, our assessment pattern should focus on that minimum level so that our learning is also focusing getting aligned to the assessment. Thus, there exists a nexus between the teaching, learning, and assessment. Teaching, learning, and assessment nexus exist. So the great teachers are made, not just born. Are you ready for the journey? Because we are organizing a wonderful training program. Because when Sir was requesting me, I was really eager to take more than 2-3 sessions. Because 3 days when training AICTE was offering, I need to thank Professor Colonel Vengat. Because more than 4 workshops we conducted. Because 3 days I myself will be taking, I can take 3 days. That is because full day, because we offered a program on MOOC, how the assessment, the pattern need to be there. Because when the assessment pattern depends, we also focus on academic auditing, where we focus on the discrimination index and difficulty index. A question paper, how it is defining, how it is discriminating the learners and the the learners who needs improvement. So all those aspects we are going to focus on it. Are you qualified? This is the question. In outcome-based education, there is no question of are you qualified. In assessment, we will try to check who are all qualified. Are you qualified? But in outcome-based education, you have to remember there is no question of are you qualified. All are qualified. All are qualified. How to bring them all are qualified? Our teaching learning process need to get redefined. So outcome-based education, the fundamental definition provided by Spaddy is learning is fixed, learning time varies. That is the first definition. In outcome-based assessment, there is no concept of are you qualified, all are qualified. That is the question which you have to remember. So then how to go about it? So in 1960s, 70s, if the students are not performing well, the parents, teachers, everyone will be shouting at the students what you are doing. You are not focusing on your studies, you are not focusing on your education. All stories they will be telling. Okay, you are not focused, you are not sincere, you are not focused. All those concepts will come. But now, if the students are not performing well, nowadays the parents, students, they are all scolding the teacher. What the hell you are doing? I went to a college, very famous college in Bangalore, which we went for a training program, but not now, 2017 or 18, I remember, 17. So when we went, we did some training program and we asked, the management was telling, sir, you give the report about the teachers so that we'll make the increment according to your report. I said, no such thing. The training is for some different domain. Their increment cannot be focused on only one part of assessment. So nowadays, the teachers are being graded as a good teachers if they produce students with all of a good mark. So then what the teachers are doing? Let me give the more mark. What is a headache for me? For me, let it be no headache. Let me give a good mark, whether they deserve or deserve. It should not affect my career. That is the focus which they are focusing. So the students nowadays, they are focusing, if the students are not performing well, the teachers are being held as a responsible. But we have to see what it is. A national education policy categorically defines 360-degree of evaluation for the students. There is a subtle difference between the term assessment and evaluation. I am using the term assessment always, not evaluation. Assessment, to sit side by, from the Latin word. Our Upanishad also means to sit side by. What do you sit side by? Sit side by and try to motivate them, try to find their mistakes, try to connect them and try to promote them. That is the concepts which you have to remember. But in the name of a fair selection, we think everybody have to take the same exam and please climb the tree. That is the thing. But individual difference need to get acknowledged. Individual difference need to get acknowledged. That is the main focus which we have to focus. In the educational reforms of AICTE, They are categorically defined. When we set a question paper, we have to define the competency which we have to do. For example, recently I was going for an academic audit for one of the university, very famous university in South India. Because we travel for several institutes to do the academic auditing. Academic auditing we do, and because once they become a university, once they become autonomous colleges, academic auditing becomes a part of the work. So we go for regularly to academic auditing. Even for Pune, Nasik, few universities, we go for academic audit regularly. So when I looked into the question paper, it is a very famous state university, very famous state university. They are asked a question, what is Darcy's law? Is it a right way of questioning? I'm not questioning the teacher, because the teacher is making a mistake because she has not been exposed to the way how she has to frame the question paper. If the students write law written by Darcy is Darcy's law, you cannot deny the mark to it, because you ask what is Darcy's law. The law written by Darcy is Darcy's law, correct? The law which has been questioned in the question paper is a Darcy's law. You have to give the mark. So the question has to be defined Darcy's law. And also I have seen that some people, they very casually they use the term distinguish and differentiate. Distinguish and differentiate are not one and the same. When you call distinguish, if I want to ask the distinguish between metals and non-metals, I have to tell the unique features of the metal, which has it's unique only in metal, which is not present in non-metals or any wood or anything. Whereas differentiate is different, and differentiate is bringing out the difference. It is this much, but this can do this much. Like that we are being. Both has this thing. In differentiate, both has the capacity. But it has this one, but this has much more beyond that. If it is having 20 grams, if it is having 50 grams. That is a differentiating. But uniqueness, he is only having, he doesn't possess that thing. So when you frame the question, so we have to remember what all the action verb which we have to use. My colleagues, I have seen the timetable was fantastically structured by the coordinator. I have seen big stalwarts like Professor P.K. Tulsi Madam is delivering a lecture. And from NITTTR Chennai, I am seeing Professor Shanmuganidhi, who prepared the course on student assessment for both for NITTTR and SWAYAM. Dr. Mallika, Dr. Dinesh Kumar also one of the coordinator for student assessment, and Dr. K.S. Giridharan, and other members, some members like Sahu and Professor Shiv Kumar, they are also offering. So the importance of the questions, importance of the word, what we are going to use it in the question paper matters a lot. So in the name of a fair body selection, fair selection, we should not have a same structure, individualized instruction. And when we are testing something, it has to replicate the natural condition. Suppose if I am asking the students to do something which may not be same as what we call it in the laboratory, the field practice, then that is not going to make a replica. So when we ask the students to do something, it has to ask them to reproduce what it has been asked in the field condition. That is very, very important. That is very, very important. That is the need of the hour which we have to take it. So if you see the Groundland, who is supposed to be, he has written one of the very good book for measurement and assessment in teaching, and he is known as the father of modern assessment, school assessment, teaching, educational assessment. He told categorically the students go to school or college to learn, not to take tests. In addition, tests cannot be used to indicate the student's absolute level of learning. All tests can do is rank students in order of achievement. The relative ranking is influenced by guessing, by bluffing, and the subjective opinion of the teachers doing the scoring. The teaching learning process would benefit if we did away with the test and depend on the students' self-assessment. That is the definition of this. So we have to go away with the self-assessment. That is what the National Education Policy 2020 talks in terms of para. 360 degree. The student need to get evaluated by the self, by himself, by the teacher, by the peers, and by the parents. Because if you observe current generation kids, they lack in self-assessment. Because of the self-assessment, lack in the self-assessment only, it leads to the extreme condition of suicidal thoughts comes to the students. Because whenever I go for regularly when I go, because recently last week also when I went as an examiner to Anna University for the MTech examination, I was asking casually to the students, how much mark you expect for PG students? I'm not talking about UG, PG. UG is also same manner. The students will simply tell, sir, I expect 95, 100, above 90. The students are not in the position to accept, yes, I am eligible only for 80 marks because my contribution was not good. They are not in the position to accept, yes, I am eligible for only for 70 marks. They are not having a guts to make it. Our assessment pattern should promote that attitude. That was the main crux in the national education policy. National education policy divided into 4 major aspects: self-evaluation, the evaluation by the teachers, evaluation by the peers, evaluation by the parents. The self-evaluation becomes important. The students need to know how to self-evaluate themselves or self-assess themselves. That is very, very important. That is the need of the hour, which we have to emphasize. And moreover, when the students are not performing, when they go to the people or how you did the examination, if they failed, they tell the examination failed. The reason is they didn't, the question paper was tough. The teacher was correcting in the evaluation. The question paper contained out of syllabus. All nonsense and nuisance they will tell. But the reality is only one thing. They didn't study for the examination. That is the reality. They wouldn't properly prepare for the examination. But other than that, they will tell all stories. That is the aspect which they have. So if I ask, so you have a chat box, I think. When I shown this picture, what comes to your mind, sir? When I've shown this picture to you, next for 2 minutes, what comes to your picture? Can you put it in the chat box, sir? Can you put it in the chat box? I hope chat box is active. I don't know. Chat box is not active. Okay. Available only to the team members. Okay, no problem. What I will do, how many participants are there? 90 participants are there. Okay. Okay, let me go to a Padlet wall. I will design a Padlet wall. I put a Padlet wall. Okay, Padlet wall. Let me have a Padlet wall. Upashika Padlet. Let me Padlet wall. Okay, let me have a wall. Create a wall and let me create a wall to your university alone. Your university alone. Let me make a wall. Let me make a wall. Sorry. What it is? This is a course exclusive for examination reforms. Examination reforms. ER. Okay. Voice of the participants. Made to explore. Okay. So this Padlet wall is there. I request the participants to go to the Padlet wall. How to go to the Padlet wall is like this. You can just type it in your browser because I cannot put it in the chat box. Chat box is not active only for the members. I have not. Maybe I can put it to the share. The participants can go to this Padlet wall. They can type in the browser padlet.com jana355/er. If they go, they can type. As soon as I see this picture, my mind thinks she is a beggar. Or cold climate. Cold climate. Whatever comes. Because I am putting, so you are knowing my name. If you put, no one knows who has posted because it is anonymous post. Don't need to worry. I'm not going to share your names or anything. It's anonymous post. You can do it. So I request the participants to go to this wing, padlet.com/jana355/er. If you go to this Padlet wall, what comes to your mind as soon as you see this picture? What comes to your mind as soon as you see this picture? Please, sir, please. What comes to your mind as soon as you see this picture? What comes to your mind? What comes to your mind? What comes to your mind as soon as you see this picture? What comes to your mind as soon as you see this picture? What comes to your mind as soon as you see this picture, please? What comes to your mind when you see this picture? So I just want to know the participants' view in it so that I can yes, only one person has written, other than that, no one has written. Okay, some people are typing it. Okay, some people are typing it. Let me see what they are typing it. So cold climate, someone, I have told cold climate. What comes to your mind when you have seen this picture? Someone is typing it. Please type, sir. Please type.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, ma.
Sir, I'm seeing your NITTTR wall, not the triple MUT's exam reform wall.
Which wall?
I'm seeing your NITTTR wall and ITTR wall.
No, I've changed it. No, I'm projecting it in the PPT. I'm projecting to the PPT through web viewer. That is the reason.
Okay, then.
I've just called the same wall in the PPT. Okay, this is the wall you're telling. No, I called this wall into the PPT. That's it. You just double click it. What comes to your mind when you've seen this picture? What comes to your mind when you have seen this picture? What comes to your mind? What comes to your mind when you have seen this picture? Immediately, what comes to your mind?
Somebody is thinking.
Yes, fantastic. Somebody is thinking. Madam has told somebody is thinking. So she has told somebody is thinking. Okay, thinking. She's told somebody is thinking. Okay, I'm publishing it. No problem. She told thinking. No problem. You can type it. You can just double click in the wall and you can tell. Please, sir. Come on, sir. At least 5 to 10 people. If you tell, it will be good. Okay, somebody sitting helpless. Okay, someone has told somebody sitting helpless. I don't know who has written, but still I can see. This is the way the collaborative tools works. Collaborative tools is one of the good collaborative. Padlet is a good collaborative. Even if you put it in the chat box, I know the name of the people, so they might feel shy. Oh, what this guy will tell. Okay, now I don't feel shy. You don't need to feel shy. I'm not promoting anonymous culture, but still I'm promoting a culture which the students will be responsive to what they're come to tell, because learning is not the product of teaching. Learning is the product of act. You see, someone has typed somebody setting helpless. I didn't type. I don't know, among your 90 participants, someone has typed. I don't know the name, but still I got the input. Thank you to that participant, because I know only among your team 90 people are only having the link they are providing. After that, I will change the link. I will change the link also. The voice of the participants. So I don't know why no one is typing, because are they feeling shy? Are they feeling because somebody sitting helpless? I put it, okay, someone told concrete wall. Okay, they told concrete wall. Okay, this is not the concrete wall. I'm not asking about this picture. I'm asking about this picture. What comes to your mind when you've seen this picture which I'm showing? This picture, what comes to your mind when someone told someone helpless, some need help, someone is thinking? So the people have written somebody sitting helpless, cold climate, thinking. So Sarah has written concrete wall. Maybe after seeing this wall, he might have thought it's a concrete wall. No problem, no problem. Maybe my question, this is the way that sometimes the question also misinterprets. The students misinterpret the question and they provide the answers based on from their own perspective. So someone feeling hopeless and depressed. See, someone has told someone is feeling hopeless and depressed. They feel, okay, I'm hopeless, I'm depressed, what to do? Because I am of that condition. Okay, good. Someone is feeling I'm hopeless and depressed. Okay, then maybe I'll wait for one more. Some are reading while covered face. Okay. Reading while covering the face. Okay. By covering the face, he or she is reading. Okay, good. Very good, very good, very good. A child waiting for his parents. Fantastic, fantastic. Maybe child waiting for his parents. Okay, child waiting for his parents. Fantastic, 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 fantastic. Writing something. Okay, writing something. Okay. With this, the people have stopped writing because no one is writing. Okay, I got some input from the wall. It is good. You can see when I've shown this picture, immediately someone told someone is writing, thinking writing, child waiting. So you have never seen this picture before. But when I've shown this picture, immediately you're trying to connect what you have already experienced in the life. Because when I taste some food item in the North India, I immediately connect to the food which I've already experienced in my life. I never take the new food as a new food. I never take the new thing as a new thing. I always try to connect the new thing to the already thing which I have experienced in my life. Similarly, in assessment, the students are, if they are interpreting something, means it would have had an influence of your teaching in the classroom, or it would have had based on the learning of the classroom. So we have seen this picture. Someone told homeless, subway, drinking, health, freezing, poverty, lost. All the ideas came because you had the thought process of correcting. So now you have to remember, now educational institutions does not mean the students are learning. You have to accept it. Educational institution does not mean the students will learn, and learning does not mean the students will have the skill for the labor market. Learning does not mean the students will have a skills for the labor market. And having skills does not mean the students will have a job. Having skill does not mean the students will have a job. So now educational institution does not mean students will learn, and learning does not mean the students will have the skills for the labor market, and having the skills does not mean the students will have a job. So it is a more complex route, how to go about it. But we have to remember, are we doing old things in a new way or new things in a new way? Because now the concept which NITTTR, now I am heading a curriculum development division. I am working on a concept known as the decolonization of curriculum. Always we have been fine-tuned to the Western culture. I'm not finding, because I was there for 5 years in US, all my degree, everything I did from there. But the thought process of skewing our thing to their need, it is really difficult. If you take OBE or if you take CDIO, we try to implement from US. But are there our school education is similar to what their school education? Not at all. Then how we try to implement it is a problem. So one thing you have to remember, but this is the most important time to be in education. It is the most important time to take care about education, the most important time to create impact in education. So in such situation, we have to remember that teaching, learning, and assessment as a great nexus and role. So educational institutions are knowledge of, if you want, the score and grade card is going to give their job. Their job, getting the job, it depends upon the score or job, grade. But getting a grade is depends upon the formative assessment or summative assessment. But in the national education policy, categorically it is told, don't focus too much on summative, try to focus more on formative assessment. Why we have to focus on formative assessment? What is the difference between formative assessment and summative assessment? It all depends. If your formative assessment is properly structured, the learning is assessed periodically. If the learning is assessed periodically, our teaching could be restructured accordingly. That is advantages there. So the score and grade card is going to define their job. The score and grade card is going to depend upon the formative assessment and summative assessment. Now NEP 2020 categorically focus more emphasis on the formative assessment rather than the summative assessment. So how it focus? Because from nowadays, the teaching learning process have changed a lot from the classroom scenario, from a library, from the practical workshops. The learning have changed different because learning doesn't take place in classroom, library, and workshop alone. Learning takes place anytime, anywhere. That is advantage. Now, the technological advancement has redefined the pattern which the learning is taking place. So let us explore together how the future assessment is there. But even if you explore as a teacher, AICTE, but students are completely blindfolded in learning. If it is come for the exam, they will study. Otherwise, they will not study. Very simple. If it is going to be the exam, they will study. Otherwise, they will not study. So the present scenario, the students are completely blindfolded in learning. So let's unlock where is the key. Key is our teaching learning process. It is impossible to redesign students to fit into a system, but we can redesign a system for the students. To redesign a system for the students is the crux of the today's talk, and that too this week, 1 week workshop, what the college is doing is tremendously good on examination reforms. They want to redesign a system for the students because it is impossible to redesign a students to fit into a system. So what we are going to do? So there are plenty of information is available. The information need to be framed into a knowledge. If it is want to framed into a knowledge, our assessment pattern to be perfect. If there is a flaw in the assessment pattern or if the flaw in the teaching pattern, then the connection of knowledge is going to create a trouble. That is the reason student doesn't know how this is connected to that is connected to this. This problem came because our teaching learning assessment problem has not been connected appropriately. So what are the outcomes? Because if you all observe, the teaching learning process assessment depends upon the learning outcomes, because ultimately we are worried about making assessment evaluation of course outcome. So that is the way the National Assessment Examination Reform talks about measuring the competency indicators and knowledge indicators. The two things we are measuring: the learning outcomes and program outcomes, program education objectives, and vision and mission of the institution. Vision and mission of the institution will evolve after some time. Program education objectives will evolve on the long term, whereas POs and LEOs or COs we measure along the short term. So, and upon the subject completion, we will be assessing the COs. Upon the graduation, we evaluate the POs. After few years from graduation, we evaluate POs, and we'll just check whether the institution has achieved this thing or not. So ultimately, you have to remember the assessment pattern. It's going to be redefined based on teaching and learning. The assessment pattern could be redefined based on, is it a formative assessment or summative assessment? Assessment pattern as per NEP, there are 4 360-degree: assessment by the self, assessment by the teacher, assessment by the peers, assessment by the parents. So aligning the learning outcomes to the assessment, being clearly tells, define the intended learning outcome. If you want to teach something, clearly tell what you are going to assess. That is very, very important, because simply asking them to going to do them, it is not going to serve the purpose. So we have to be very clear what exactly we have to do and what exactly we do. So define the learning outcomes, define the internal learning outcomes. Choose the teaching learning activity that likely to lead to the attaining the learning outcomes, and assessing the student learning outcome, how it will match with what was intended, and finally arriving at the final thing. Because if we want to teach them some skill, there need to be some practical sessions need to be there. Assessment of a skill should not be based on theoretical knowledge alone. Assessment of the skill should be based on the... Yes, sir.
लिस्ट हमारे पास नहीं है इस तरह बिजनेस करना।
Yes, sir. I don't know, someone is telling. Okay. Okay, I have to finish by 12 o'clock. Okay, I will finish it. No problem. Okay. So we have to remember the focus of teaching learning need to be not on the content base. It has to be focused on the context base. That is the major crux which is there. When the assessment need to be structured, it should not be based on the content based knowledge. It has to be based on the context based knowledge. It has to be based on the context based knowledge. It has to be based on the context based. It will try to promote the knowledge. It will try to promote the knowledge. So learning factual information, the assessment pattern defines. Learning visual identification, the assessment pattern is different. And learning principle concepts rules, the assessment pattern is different. Learning procedures, performing skilled perpetual motor act, and developing desirable attitude, opinions, and motivation. So depending upon the content, the assessment need to get structured. If I'm going to learn the procedures, My assessment need to measure the skill what I have acquired. If I want to measure the attitude or affective, it has to be structured accordingly. So depending on the content, the assessment need to be structured. So assessment evaluation not only the same as I told in Latin word, sit side by. There are three types of assessment and evaluation. Assessment depends upon the measurement, purpose of process of measuring something with the purpose of assigning a numerical value. That is assessment. Evaluation, the process of determining the worth of something in relation to established benchmark. That is evaluation. They are not one and the same. To put it a simple manner, assessment, it's measurement, quantitative measurement and qualitative measurement. It is either quantitative or qualitative. It could be there. For qualitative, for non-measurement tools, we use rubrics. You remember we use rubrics, how to develop rubrics. My colleagues will tell National Science Foundation of United States of America developed a wonderful software, rubystar.forteachers.org. Very good software. You can do it web browser software. You can create your own rubrics, customize the rubrics. You can give the scales. You can define the indicators. The descriptors are automatically filled in. So that is advantage for qualitative assessment. So assessment is nothing but a quantitative measurement plus qualitative measurement plus value judgment. Plus value judgment. When you add a value judgment, assessment becomes evaluation. Assessment becomes an evaluation. So what we are going to do, the trick is what students learn what they learn. It will be assessed, not what is in curriculum. The students are not learning what it is in curriculum. They are learning what it will be assessed. So as I told you, assessment plays an important role. So there are three types of assessment are there: formative, summative, and diagnostic. As I told you, focus on formative has to be more when compared to summative and diagnostic. What do you mean by it? So I will try to put it in a simple manner. So suppose if I come to your place, Gorakhpur, if I'm coming. So first one is a preparatory assessment or diagnostic assessment. It means assessment to learning, assessment to learning. Second is a formative assessment for learning. And third is summative assessment of learning. So it is nothing but assessment to learning, assessment for learning, assessment of learning, assessment to learning, assessment for learning, assessment of learning. The three things are there. I can put it in a simple example. Okay, let it be. Now, if I want to make afternoon lunch, if I want to go and make afternoon lunch after the classroom, now already it is 12 o'clock, I have to go and prepare lunch. Let me think I want to make a lunch of curd rice. Let me take, I want to make a curd rice. So if I want to make a curd rice, I have to curd rice and potato fry. This was the lunch which I want to prepare today. So if I want to prepare a curd rice and tomato potato fry, if I know what it is available in kitchen before, I can buy while going to the home, or as soon as I go home, I check my kitchen. Oh, potato is not there. Okay, let me go and purchase the potato. What are the items? What I need, curd, everything, whatever I need, I go and purchase and come and keep it ready before starting cooking the process. So that is known as a preparatory assessment or diagnostic assessment. What it is there to prepare the outcomes, to achieve the outcomes. If some requirement is missing to achieve the outcome, that is achieved through some bridge courses. Some courses where we'll train and where you give the, suppose before the semester starting, if this is a subject which they are going to learn is a prerequisite subject, so the knowledge is important. So if they possess, if how the knowledge is defined accordingly, I can focus on this subject. So that is a preparatory assessment or assessment to learning. Once I purchase potato, mirchi, everything I purchase, I started cooking it. During the cooking, I taste in between how the potatoes taste is there, how the curd rice taste is came, whether salt is good, chili powder is good. That is during the process you are evaluating. That is a formative assessment. Assessment for learning. If the formative assessment is perfect, if the formative assessment is properly structured, then my final product, no need to worry about the final product. If the formative assessment is flawed, then I can see if my potato is not cooked properly, then I can learn, oh, I should have made the potato to boil for some more time, baked some more time. So I can also redefine my teaching skills, or also I can redesign my cooking skills. That is what the formative assessment. Formative assessment is assessment for learning. Finally, once I cooked the food and one of the guests is coming, suddenly he wants to taste. when he tasted the curd rice and potato fry, he said, awesome, sir, awesome. Then that is the summative assessment. The product assessment. The product assessment depends upon the process assessment. The speediness of the process or the efficiency of the process depends upon the diagnostic assessment. If the diagnostic assessment really will make me to structure my teaching, which in turn going to focus on formative assessment, the formative assessment is going to focus on the summative assessment. So this is what the thing. To take look into the predictable difficulty, to diagnose the strength and the weakness. Formative assessment to provide a feedback to the students, to improve the learning, to provide a profile of what student has learned, to help students to develop the skills of self-assessment, to motivate students possibly through goal setting. So summative assessment will tell whether the students is passed or failed, grade and rank, to select for future course, to predict the success in the future courses, to motivate the students. This is what the summative assessment focus. So from employment point of view, to license to proceed, to license to practice, to select for future employment, to predict success in the future employment. So these are the things for summative assessment. So if you see the range of assessment method, it's in closed books or essay types, short questions, answer combination, open book exam, multiple choice question, coursework, learning journals, portfolio, presentation, and peer and self-assessment. The assessment tasks do not match the stated learning outcomes. The marking criteria do not match the task of outcomes. The criteria are not known to the students. The students do not understand the criteria. These are the some problem which exists with them. If they don't know the criteria, they're not going to do the perform. So sometimes they might be focusing on some unit which is not going to come for the examination. So they might waste. So they don't know the criteria, or they didn't understand the criteria. Making a criteria which mismatches, that is also very, very important. So overuse of one mode of assessment, such as written examination, essays and MCQs, or assessment overload for students and staff, insufficiency of time for the students to do the assessment, and too many assessment with the same deadline. All those things are causing problem for the assessment. So insufficient time, absence of well-defined criteria, unspecified criteria, it is going to define the problem, and lack of programmatic assessment and variation is the assessment, and with variation modules and assessors different, because if the two different assessors are there, it is going to create a problem. So to define effective assessment, first you have to what are the outcomes to be assessed, what capabilities or skill which you expect in the final day question paper you will be focusing. Is it assessment method chosen consonant and outcomes and skills, or it's relatively easy? So what are the alternate assessment pattern defines? Are the marking scheme or criteria has been provided appropriately? Is it matching the skills and outcomes? So to give the feedback, you have to remember the feedback should relate to the assessment criteria. Is it the feedback should be linked to the students' work? The feedback should be on the timely feedback. If the feedback what you are giving, the students should understand the feedback, and it should not provide overwhelming feedback also, you should not provide. So when it clearly given, the emphasis should be on NDP 2020. If you remember, it regularly focuses on the regular formative and competency-based assessment, promoting learning and development of students, focus on assessment for learning, and test higher order skill. That is critical thinking, conceptual clarity, and as I told you, there are 4 types of knowledges are there: factual knowledge, conceptual knowledge, procedural knowledge, and metacognitive knowledge. If you want to remember the procedural knowledge, the concepts need to be clear, the facts need to be clear. And metacognitive knowledge, the knowledge about knowledge, is the highest level of the assessment. So if you want to promote analytical, critical thinking and conceptual clarity, the focus should be on conceptual and procedural, which in turn should lead to the metacognitive knowledge. And finally, the student should be continuously learning to optimize the learning process. As I told you, 360-degree evaluation, assessment by teacher, self-assessment, peer assessment, assessment by parents. So if all these 4 things are taken into consideration, the students will learn appropriately. So preparatory assessment or diagnostic assessment is assessment made prior to instruction, assessment made during the instruction, assessment made on the completion of instruction, comprehensive assessment of having all the components. What is the future ahead? It is impossible to predict the future with great accuracy, because we never thought the pandemic will strike. When the pandemic strike, our teaching pattern have changed, our learning pattern have changed, our assessment pattern also changed. So It is impossible to predict. But what it's controllable with us is our teaching learning process. So as a teacher, when he's making a teaching learning process perfect, it is not his walking path is comfortable. It is student walking path is comfortable, so that his assessment path is also comfortable. Its assessment path is also comfortable. That is the way in which we can recode it. And the way in which students live with technology, the assessment should entertain the technology into it. They tap the energy which bring the students to the class. So obviously your assessment should focus on, formative assessment should focus on activity-based learning and problem-based learning. That is important. What is the next step for you? Think big. If you want to think big, we don't have a question whether we do use ICT, how well is we do it. Without collaboration, there is no creation. When you do any assessment, it is not what you are going to do. It is going to make the students to do it and students to do it. Because if you see any students, they always will be happy to exhibit the skill set. If you want the students to exhibit the skill set, we have to have a clear thought of about the students' idea. So the first thing is you have to have the awareness. Next 5 days, you will be provided with awareness of how to frame the question paper, what are the odds, higher order thinking skills, what do you mean by Bloom's taxonomy, why we have to use Bloom's taxonomy, how we have to fix the outcomes, everything you will be taught awareness. Awareness should lead to the consideration. Consideration should lead to the adoption. Adoption should lead to the innovation. If you make the innovation, if you want to make the students to make the innovation, you have to have the awareness concept of awareness about the question paper setting. You have to consider and you have to adopt your teaching learning according to it. I hope this workshop will improve your efficiency, enrichment, and enlightenment. I hope the outcome is achieved. The students basically learn by videos, reading materials, active participation, assessment, and quiz. But you have to remember, getting information from the internet is taking a water from the fire hydrant. It doesn't matter how many resources you have if you don't know how to use them. So I don't know whether I provided the information or misinformation, but I cannot try it once again. It is already 12 o'clock. I don't know whether I loaded you with several stuff, but I'm pretty sure in this lecture, before coming, you better know what exactly the teaching, learning, and assessment means, what is meant by outcome-based education, what is the difference between diagnostic, formative, and summative assessment, what exactly the assessment is different. Assessment is quantitative measurement plus qualitative measurement. Evaluation is nothing but assessment plus value judgment. This lecture could have given you a spark. This spark will kindle your mind for the next 5 days. That confidence I have. And with this, I'm pretty sure whether we can win the race, but we are slow, but we are steady. Why we always want to go to Cornell University or different universities abroad is the way in which the student learning pattern is defined is ultimately different. And the students are also very much excited to learn from such a system where they have a more clarity of thought and clarity of action. If the clarity of thought and clarity of the action is there, then everything is going to be in order and perfect. So if you have any doubts, further comment, unanswered question, unresolved issues, you can ask me. Thank you very much. We can always get connected. These are my contact details. Thank you very much, because due to the time shortage, I was rushing up few slides because the 12 o'clock, the next speaker has to take up the session to do it. So now, based on your comfort, I can you can ask any questions if you have. I will be always happy to answer it, because tomorrow, since I am out session, I was not in the position to cover. Otherwise, I will cover a few sessions, which is really I was happy to cover a few sessions. But tomorrow I'm not there. Monday, Tuesday, we are there. We'll try to see. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. If you have any questions, you can ask me, sir.
Hello. Yes, sir. You are saying something, sir.
No, I told if you have any questions, you can ask me.
Okay, okay. So participants, please, if you have any queries, please ask to speaker. Participant, please.
Good afternoon, sir. And it's very nice discussion from your side. Sir, in present scenario, when we are conducting exams, so it comes under assessment or evaluation? Am I audible, sir?
Yes, yes, madam. Yes, madam. What? Tell
In
me what?
present scenario, before implementation of national education policy, we are conducting exams. So it comes under assessment or evaluation?
It comes under evaluation, ma'am, because we are trying to make it into some standard defined benchmark. If he gets 80, this is a grade. If he gets 90, this is a grade. So assessment and evaluation at present are used highly interchangeably. We are using it. As I told you, there is only a subtle differences there, but we are not having a clear demarcated line. We are not having. We are interchangeably using. But assessment is, it is only for the improvement. We are not trying to give him your 80 mark if I'm giving. That is assessment. Okay. But if if I'm trying to compare with some standard benchmark, then it becomes the evaluation mark.
Okay. So it means the distribution of assignments and then correcting their mistakes, and we told them that how you can improve your way of presentation as well as your way of learning. That comes under the category of assessment.
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. We all certainly got benefited from breadth of knowledge and depth of your expertise. Thanks a lot.
Participant, any more queries, sir? Participant side, from participant side. Okay, sir. There is no query, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for accepting our invitation, sir, and giving a wonderful talk, sir. Thank you very much, sir. So we'll take a break of 5 minutes, and after that, we'll have session 2 of Professor S. Chatterjee, sir. So we'll start at 12:15. The next session will start at 12:15.